Hey guys, it's Boki here from Gigi's Fabric Shop, home to Juki and Janome Junkies, and in today's video, we're going to be making this adorable little bunny rabbit. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to make this little guy, and it's a free pattern. So we're going to dive into how to make it. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know and where to get the pattern, so let's dive into it. So to make this little bunny, we're going to go over a couple things so that way you can set yourself up for success. The first thing being, where are we going to find the pattern? So I'm going to tell you where to get it. The next thing, we're going to go over all the kits and supplies that are available for this pattern. We're going to go over the cutting and the interfacing, and then of course the most important part, sewing it together. So by the end of this video, you will have an adorable little bunny for yourself. Before we get into this project, I just want to let you guys know what this little segment is. These are our Make It Mondays. If you've been a follower of my shows in the Gigi's Fabric Shop app, you'll know that I go live 3 times a week, and on Mondays, I do a Make It Monday segment where I teach you guys how to sew something together for free in the app. I am putting that now onto YouTube, where the videos will get posted on Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just like they were in the app. But this is going to be so much better for you and I. No interruptions, no connection issues. Everything will get posted so you'll have an easier experience to replay and make your project. So let's start by getting the pattern first. You're going to go over to jukijunkies.com, and if you have a hard time finding it, just look in the description of this video. We'll post it for you there. It is a free PDF download that you'll just plug in all your information, kind of like you're checking out, and then you'll be sent a downloadable PDF in your email. The next thing I want to talk about is available kits. So on jukijunkies.com, you'll also find complete kits for this little cutie patootie, just like on the heart pattern that we did last month. The little bunny is going to have everything that you need in those kits. So all the interfacing, all the fabric, zipper, hardware, everything, so you won't even have to think about it, all right? We're going to go over the supplies next, so then that way, if you don't want to purchase any of the kits, you know what you're going to need. Alrighty, so now let's go over our supply list, so that way if you're not purchasing one of the kits, you know exactly everything that you'll need. When you download the pattern, you'll receive all the instructions. The supply list will be at the top, so you can follow along there too. You don't have to feel like, got to write it all down right now. You're going to need an 8-inch zipper. You can work with a number 5 or number 3. It's up to you. You're going to need a little scrap for your Hexie little butt component right here. It can be, you can use a lot of different things here. You can use a non-frayable fabric, you can use cotton, you can even use a pom-pom if you really wanted to. Get creative with the little poofy part of the bunny, but 5x5 little scrap should be plenty for this little Hexie. You're going to need 1 fat quarter for the exterior and then 1 fat quarter for the interior of this project. All right, so there's your fabric, and of course you will need a cute little pull. Look at this one that I used on the bunny that I have right here. How cute are those little flowers? Those are so fun. And then as far as interfacing goes, the SF101 is what you will be needing for the inside. All right, so I kind of like to match them up when I'm getting prepared. And then for your exterior, you're going to need some fusible fleece. I think it's 1/4 yard for the fleece and then 1/3 yard for the SF101. Depending on what you're doing for your little component here, if you're going to be using 100% cotton, I do recommend having a little scrap of like a heat and bond or a Seam 2 light to help with the fraying of the fabric. It'll also kind of keep it nice and in place. So I'm going to be using some of that for that. But of course, this is everything that you're going to need. If this kind of overwhelms you, I would highly suggest you guys purchase the kits. The kits are hand coordinated by me, and they're always changing depending on what's out of stock, in stock, and you can even do a mystery bundle if you want a little surprise, which those are so fun. So just make it a little easier for yourself. Grab one of the kits that's on jukijunkies.com so you don't have to coordinate everything together. All right, so when you go to jukijunkies.com, you have that template already downloaded, the pattern. This is the template you're going to get. You'll get 2 downloadable items once you receive the pattern. It's going to be the actual instructions, paper instructions, and then the template. So you're going to get the little 1-inch Hexie that you need for its little tail, okay? And if you have some templates at home, just make sure they're 1 inch because those will work for this part of the project, all right? The template, this is my original template, so yours is going to look a lot nicer than this, but we'll go over everything. You'll see that it's going to come in 2 separate sections that you're going to have to cut out, and then you're going to tape these together to make one giant bunny. Now we're going to start cutting out all of our fabric and interfacing everything to get ready to sew. All right, so let's grab our template, our bunny, and match up all those lines so that way it's right where it needs to be. Grab a little piece of tape to secure that in place, like so. And then I would go ahead and fold the bunny in half so that way it's perfectly in half, so you can have two different ways to cut out your templates, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both. So we'll talk about those here, and then we'll talk about this little cutting line there. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with my exterior fabric of the bunny. You're gonna cut 2 of these templates for the exterior. At this point, you can use the template in 2 ways. You can either trace it out like this, where it's whole, or since we already folded it in half, we could just fold this fabric in half, right sides together, wrong sides. I like to do right sides together because especially when you're working with like a darker fabric, it's easier to see the markings. When you fold it in half, it's a little bit easier that way to cut your bunny out. It's less to trace, less to mess up. You're cutting 2 layers at one time, so I just find it easier. And keep in mind if you're working with a directional fabric that you have it folded correctly. You can do this with a rotary cutter or scissors. If you know me, I always like to trace first. I find that it's just easier for me this way. I don't like using a rotary cutter when I'm cutting out patterns. I don't know, I don't feel as stable. Comment down below which one you do. Do you like to cut with like scissors and trace it out, or are you more of a rotary cutter type of person? I like to do it this way. This is just, I feel like I get the best results this way. I feel like I can be more precise when I trace it out. So go ahead and cut this out, and you're gonna repeat this process once you have 2 completed, and then we're gonna move on to the lining. All right, so you got your 2 exterior fabrics cut, and honestly, this fabric, y'all, is so cute. Look at the little hidden rabbits in this fabric. I'm definitely gonna have some kits out of this one, so if you wanna have a matching one with me, definitely grab one of those kits. So next up, you'll have a decent amount of scraps left over, so we're gonna use, make a little tab for the zipper. This little guy right here. So you can use it your interior fabric or your exterior. I'm going to use the exterior fabric just so it's all super cohesive. And you're just going to cut out a little 2 by 2 inch square out of whichever fabric you decide. And your little squares don't have to be like perfect, you know, just roughly 2 by 2. I just kind of outlined it because this is just a little tab that we're going to get ready for the zipper. So before we start cutting the lining fabric, I think it's actually better that we go ahead and cut out our fusible fleece out of our template, because the fusible fleece is what's going to the exterior fabric, because when we start cutting out the lining, that's when this little template comes into play. We're going to cut this portion out, cut the ears off basically, and then so might as well take advantage while the template is complete and cut out our bunny shapes of the fusible fleece. So go ahead and cut 2 of those out and get that ready, and then we'll start cutting the interior. And just a little note, while I'm cutting everything out here for the bunny rabbit, once I traced everything out, I am cutting just a little underneath that line. So just like a hair underneath, and it doesn't have to be super right because this is gonna get fused onto the wrong side of the fabric. So it's okay if this part's a little bit messier. But if you cut it a little bit under, it's gonna really help with like the bulk of this project. So I am just cutting a little bit underneath. So here you can see kind of what I did. Just a little bit rough underneath that line. So that way, when we go to fuse this on to the wrong side, it's a little bit smaller than the actual bunny. You'll thank yourself, and your machine will thank you too as far as the bulk goes. All right, so now let's go ahead and grab our template, and along the little dotted line up here, we're just gonna follow those lines and cut off the ears of the bunny. I did the pattern this way because it was really, really hard to tuck in the ears of the rabbit once it's already done. So it's just easier this way for the pouch to be like this on the inside, the lining, because this will hold more. Really, what are you gonna fit in the ears anyways? You could keep the ears on if you wanted to, but I promise you it's way harder that way. So this will be nice too, because this will be our birthing area for the project as well. So cut the little ears off for right now, and now we're gonna use this template to cut out the lining pieces. So go ahead and grab your lining fabric, and at this point you can feel free to fold it in half again. Should be the same, so that way you don't have to trace more, work harder. Why work harder? Work smarter. So I'm doing this on the wrong side again, just because it's easier for me to see. And I'm going to trace out 2 of these pieces for the lining. Okay, so now grabbing your SF101, we're going to cut out 2 of these kind of incomplete bunny shapes. It almost looks like a snowman of the interfacing for the lining fabric, which again is that SF101. So really follow the same that you just did and cut 2 out. So now grab everything that you have cut so far. You should have 2 complete bunnies of your fusible fleece and your exterior fabric, 2 incomplete rabbits of your SF101 and the lining fabric, and then your little 2 by 2 inch tab. So we're gonna go ahead and start interfacing everything I'm working on an awesome wool mat. If you guys don't have a wool mat, I would highly, highly suggest you do. They are the best. You can really make an ironing station wherever you need to. I'm working with the Oliso iron. This is such a cool iron. You can like grab it and the teeth drop down, and then when you let go, it lifts up, so it's never gonna like burn your ironing station. Really cool. So you're just gonna grab your little 2x2 tab. You're gonna fold it in half, right sides together, give it a little press to create a little crease. And then you should have something like this. And then you're gonna fold the left and the right side towards that middle crease and press once again, being very careful not to burn your little fingers. Look at this. And then when you're done with this step, you'll have 4 individual little crease marks like that. And then you're just gonna fold those to the center, fold this like this. So really there's no raw edges, and our zipper is gonna get tucked in right into that little fold. Grab one of your lining pieces, make sure the wrong side is up, and grabbing one of your SF101s as well. Find the glue side, the rough side. One side should be really, really rough. One side should feel very smooth, almost like fabric. You're gonna put the wrong side on the glue side onto the wrong side, okay? So that way it actually adheres on. Be very patient with this process. Make sure everything is nice and fused. Make sure you're not dragging and tugging as you are ironing everything into place, because both of these are wovens and they naturally will stretch. So just make sure you give it a nice little press and hold like this. And go ahead and repeat this for both of your lining pieces when they are done. Do you guys want to see a magic trick? You're probably thinking, Boki, why are you using a marker on your fabric? Well, this is not just any marker. This is a magic marker. So these are awesome, you guys. These are friction markers. They mark up on your fabric. Friction is an amazing brand. It uses friction, aka heat, to erase all the markings. So I love using the markers for interfacing and for projects like this, just because it's so much easier to write. But they do have pens, and the pens are fabulous, and you can find all the supplies that I'm using actually here today on jukijunkies.com. So feel free to check those out, because these are pretty awesome. If you've never tried friction pens before, I would highly, highly suggest it. All right, so now moving on to your exterior fabric. We have the fusible fleece, slightly smaller than the outside, which is perfect. And then when you flip this around, you're gonna find that rough side again, the grippy side. The grippy side is what's gonna go down to the wrong side of the fabric. That's where the glue is. You want the glue to melt on the wrong side, not the pretty side, and definitely not underneath your iron, okay? With fusible fleece, I like to actually iron it with the fabric right side up, because I just find that the glue melts so much faster that way. There are heating instructions for working with interfacing, so just keep that in mind, that you're not doing it too hot, because sometimes it'll be like the opposite effect. You'll just kind of burn it and it'll curl and it won't adhere to the fabric properly. So just keep that in mind. But I like to interface my fusible fleece like this, and then I always like to kind of give it a second to rest so that I can really see what part still needs, you know, time to fuse. And I'll fluctuate back and forth between the two, get everything nice and fused, and then we're gonna start preparing our zipper. All right, last thing we gotta worry about before we start prepping the zipper is actually the fun part, the little pom-pom, the little butt detail there. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna grab our Steam-A-Seam 2 Light. You can use Heat and Bond, but I prefer Steam-A-Seam 2 Light. If you're working with a fabric that has a wrong and a right side, make sure you're paying attention to that. The sticky side goes to the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, and then I'm gonna flip it around and just give this a good little press so that it melts on to the fabric. And there's a couple different things that you can do here. So actually for this sample that I made, I actually did an English paper piece, like hand sewn hexie, because it's something that I never did before. I was debating on teaching it to you guys, but I'm still not 100% like confident. I don't have enough practice to like be able to confidently teach you, but it's not super hard. So if you want to challenge yourself, feel free to use this little hexie and like use it on some thicker paper, trace it out and use it to create a little 1-inch hexie that way, and it's kind of fun, but I'm gonna just applique this second one, and I'm still gonna do a really cute stitch out just like this. Again, you can use a non-frayable fabric here, kind of like how I talked about in the heart demonstration, and then you can also do like a pom-pom. When you have your bunny all made, feel free to post it on social media, at either Facebook, Instagram, and tag us. Tag Gigi's Fabric Shop, tag Juki Junkies, and use the hashtag MakeItMonday. And I wanna see how you guys make your little pouches, what you do to it, how you make it all fun and different and unique. So definitely do that, because I think we're gonna start making it a regular thing where you share your projects, and then we'll pick a winner next month to receive like the next Make It Monday kit. So definitely definitely do that and share your cute little project. I'm just gonna go ahead and like roughly trim this to be the same size as this, just so it's a little bit easier to handle. And then I'm gonna use my template for my Hexie to start tracing that. I'm gonna let this cool just for a second, because if I start marking on it right away, same little magic trick's gonna happen where nothing will show up because it's too hot. So you just use your little Hexie. You can do it on the right side of the fabric or the wrong side, doesn't matter, especially when you're working with friction markers where everything just irons away. It's no problem, especially since this shape is, you know, equal on all sides. If this was a shape that was irregular, you would have to make sure you do it on the wrong side and like mirrored. I've talked about that before because it's kind of like a tricky thing. So with this one, it's okay. There's not a wrong way to cut it out. So go ahead and cut this out very patiently. Don't worry about those markings because all those are going to iron away. Just focus on cutting as straight as you can. Once you're done, just give it a good little press and ooh, voila. All our markings are gone. Our little Hexie is ready. And then we're going to find its position on the rabbit here in just a little bit. But just to kind of have an idea, like how cute is that? How cute. I would highly suggest using something as a high contrast, just so that way the little butt detail is definitely very pronounced. As far as our zipper goes, we're gonna grab our 8-inch zipper and we're gonna talk about the Butler method and lining everything up properly. And I'm gonna be using the zipper jig to help me install the teeth, the pull to the actual teeth, the zipper. This is a fabulous tool, definitely worth the investment. It's so incredibly easy. It has number 3 markings and number 5 markings on the zipper, so I'm working with the number 5. I'm gonna grab the pull and I'm gonna put the pull side along the flat edge, and there's multiple ways to doing this. I think you can do it the other way. I always like doing it this way, but so then that way the pull is out this way, and then you just grab your zipper, and the goal is to feed it as evenly as possible simultaneously. I kind of like to get like eye level just to make sure. And then once you have your grip, you can just push it through, and then with the shape of the zipper, it just helps because it's like curved. You can pull it right off. Your zipper is ready to rock and roll. So very easy. These zipper jigs are fabulous, definitely worth the investment, especially if you're just starting out with zippers and stuff. The better the tools you have, the easier your life's gonna be. And then as far as the tab goes, we wanna pay attention to the shape of the zipper. So if you turn it around, you'll see that the zipper has that curved part to the top and then the flat part. The Butler method is gonna be done to the top, so the curved part, and then this little tab's gonna get stuck down parallel to the flat end. Okay, so all you're gonna do is you're gonna grab that little tab that we pressed, and you're just gonna tuck it in all the way to that middle crease, fold it over like so, and then you're just gonna go to the sewing machine and sew this down at 1/8 of an inch all the way. You'll have excess, but we'll trim that off, and then we're gonna do the Butler method to the zipper. Alrighty, so I'm getting ready to sew on my TL 2010, and I'm gonna go over the settings just in case you might be working with the TL at home as well. So we're gonna make sure our stitch length is just a little bit under 2 right now for the little zipper assembly that we got going on. I'm working with my linen glide 40 thread here today. I'm working with a 9014 needle, and as far as my pressure foot pressure goes, I like to keep it usually like 2 notches above that middle dot. That's usually a good happy place for me. So now we're gonna start attaching the little pull that we created, that 2x2 inch tab. It's gonna get tucked in right in there. It's really important that you make sure it's nice and even on top and bottom, that when you're gonna sew, you're catching the top and the bottom at the same time. And we're gonna trim off that excess, so don't worry about that too much. I'm working with the hinged 1/4 inch foot right now on the machine. You can use your hinged 2.5 millimeter foot if you wanted here, because the goal is to top stitch this like at 1/8 of an inch. And by the way, you guys, if you're looking for this foot, or if you're looking for the LED light I showed in the beginning of this video, any Juki accessories, you guys can head over to jukijunkies.com and you know, purchase anything that you might need, even needles. All right, so let's just go ahead and start sewing this down. I'm just eyeballing it, okay, 1/8 of an inch, just like so. And then should look something like this. You can make those stitches a little longer. I just realized mine are really, really tight, but the goal here, this needs to be nice and secure. It's really important that this stays together, and we're gonna go ahead and trim off the excess so it's nice and flush with the rest of the zipper. Like that, okay? So there we go. Now we're gonna do the Butler method on the other end of the zipper. So just so you guys have a good visual of the Butler method, this was our previous little project that we sewed together. You see up here how these curve in, and then on this side you have the little tab. So that's just what we created. Now we're going to be doing this nice top part, which allows us to open up the project really wide. It's really good for smaller projects. You can usually upgrade a lot of pouches to this, so that's what we're going to be focusing on next. All right, so we're going to make sure we open our zipper all the way, okay? You can start on the right or left side. I'm going to start on the right. What's going to happen is you're going to start to pinch this with your finger, and you're always going to use your thumb to guide you to bring that little flap all the way up to the teeth. You see that? You following there? Looks really good. And then on the back side, you'll see like a little angle that gets created, that little fold. That's totally normal. That's supposed to be there. So once more, just to have a good visual effect here, you're pinching and you're going to start pulling that little fold right up to the teeth like so. So I'm going to clip this to just secure it in place for right now until I'm ready to sew it, and we're going to do the other side. You're going to start to pinch it again, and you're going to start bringing that little fold all the way up to the teeth like that. Pop a little clip in there for right now, and then on the back you see that little angle that gets created. That's fine. That's supposed to be there. It's kind of a good indicator that you did it correctly. All right, so now we're going to go over to the sewing machine to sew that in place using a nice tight stitch length. You can keep it right under 2 like we had, and we're going to sew it right on the edge at 1/8 of an inch. So I usually like to use a stiletto or something sharp to help me feed this zipper into the machine. So just being very, very careful. I'm using just like a curved pair of snips just to help feed it through. And then we're just going to put it underneath. And right at the edge, like 1/8 of an inch, I'm going to just hold this in place, being very careful not to hit whatever device I'm using with the needle. Just going really slow and sewing at 1/8 of an inch right on that edge. And I am going to do a back tack stitch, especially at the beginning, just to make sure that it's securing it in place. So it's going to look something like so when it's nice and sewed in. And the goal here is just to make sure you're really close to the edge, not in more than 1/4 of an inch, because then you risk being able to see this. So here's the back side. We have that little curve there, so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. You can remove your little clip. And then I like to just make sure everything's good, and I'll use something just to help me feed it underneath the machine. Pop this down and go very, very slow. And once it catches it, I'll do a little reverse, and then I'll cut it. So now you should have both sides nice and completed, looking something like so. And then on the back side, you have those little folds created, so it's nice and curved to help you open up your project super wide. Now that our zipper is completely assembled, we're going to go ahead and fold this in half. All right, so tab to the Butler method and just create a little pinch here, finger press it like so, and then go in with some sort of marking tool just to mark the center of your zipper, because that's going to help us align it to the rabbit. Go ahead and do it to the other side as well. Give it a nice little finger press, and then just go in with your marking tool, whichever one you may decide, depending on the color of your zipper. Just create your center markers here. Next, we're going to focus on finding the center marker so we can attach our little bunny butt, and so we can create the center marks for the zipper that we just marked up as well. So go ahead and find which one of your exteriors you like the most for the part to attach the little button. And I think I like this one better because I think there's less going on in that little area, so I think that's going to look really good. So we're going to focus on this one, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fold this right in half and just kind of finger press, so that way I can find my center mark. And I'm going to create a little mark right here at the bottom, because that's what's going to line up with the zipper. And then just kind of have an idea of where the center is. I'm going to figure out my placement here for my tail. I think this would look really cute like this. The nice thing if you're working with the steam-a-seam is that once you peel this off, it actually has a tacky side that gets put onto the fabric, so it'll help kind of like in the process of finding where you like it. So once you find your sweet spot for your little bunny tail, you can move it around, kind of pick it up. I like to lift it so I can kind of like see if I'm actually like straight or not, if it's like in a good spot. So once you find that place and once you're happy with it, then you can go ahead and iron it on so that other glue side adheres to the fabric. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go over to the sewing machine and I'm just gonna sew kind of like at a diagonal like I did on the sample. So I'm just gonna sew from point to point, point to point, point to point, keep it nice in place. I could go around and applique this if I really wanted to, but I kind of like the texture of doing the star because it'll kind of help highlight the little pom-pom better. So I'm gonna go ahead and make the stitch length a little bit longer now, like a 3, just for it to be a little bit more decorative since this is stitching that's gonna be seen on the machine. And like I said, I'm just gonna stitch from corner to corner, from point to point of the hexie, and you can draw lines here if you want. Usually what I like to do is I like to just draw like a little indicator for myself on each point because it just helps me stay straight. I am gonna do a little back tack stitch right as I start because I really want that to stay nice and secure. And then I'm gonna stitch the point, do the same thing, little back tack stitch there, and then continue to connect all the way. And then I can decide if I wanna do more, but if you do a nice little contrast stitch here, but still like nice and complementary, it's gonna look really, really good. And just give enough texture to the little bunny tail. Can we just talk about those stitches, you guys? Those stitches are absolutely gorgeous. All right, ta-da, look at his little fluffy tail. It's so cute. It looks really, really good. You could add more or less stitching, do whatever you want here. This is a little creative part of the pattern. I'm just gonna trim off all these little extra pieces and then we're gonna start attaching the zipper. All right, so now we're gonna start attaching the zipper to the exterior. So grab the piece that you just made. Go ahead and have one of your lining pieces handy too, because we're gonna be working with one of those. And judging off of the sample of knowing how to attach the zipper, it looks like I put the tab on the left side and the pull on the right side. This makes sense for me because I'm right-handed, so that works for me, but keep in mind if you're making it for yourself or for somebody who's left-handed, maybe you'd want to put the tab on the left side so then that way they could pull it that way. I don't know, depends on however you want it. I guess maybe it'd make more sense the other way. I don't know. Just pick what you'd like there. There's not really a wrong or right way to do that. So I'm gonna make sure that my zipper tab is on the left side of me, and this is how it's gonna go because you gotta make sure you put the right side of the zipper teeth side down to the right side. So we're gonna be starting with this side first. I'm gonna be going in with the Steam-A-Seam 2, or actually the Steam-A-Seam 2 light tape. This stuff is pretty awesome. You've seen me demo it before. This is exceptionally nice if you're somebody new to zippers. This is a 1/4-inch tape that's gonna help keep the zipper in place, especially nice since this has a little bit of a curvatured shape to it. You're just gonna attach the tape all the way along the edge of the zipper, and you wanna get it as close to the edge as humanly possible, because the better you get it to the edge, the more unseen it's gonna be. So then you're just gonna go in with an iron and you're gonna press that like so that the tape starts to become translucent, and you know you've done it correctly when it's translucent and it just peels off nice and easy. And you wanna do it right away versus later, because if you wait, it cools down and then it's kind of the opposite effect there. This is gonna go to my right side, and actually since I pressed that, I got rid of my little 1/2-inch marker. So let me just press this really quick so I can make a little marker for myself to know that I'm somewhere right there, okay? And you're gonna make sure that that half marker that you made on the zipper matches up to the half marker on the actual exterior, because that's why we made those points there. So that way it's even all the way across. And then once you have that nice and ready to go, I would start ironing there, because this glue is gonna help adhere to the project, so that way you don't have to use any pins or clips, and just slowly start curving with the shape of the bunny. And as you start curving, you can start pressing, so that way it stays in place. I'm gonna do the other side and just curve it. And as you're curving it, then you can go in and press as you're happy with that shape. This is such a great tool, you guys. You can use this even on something that's not curved. It really just helps the zipper stay so much in place. So if you're a newbie to zippers and you're just starting out and zippers kind of scare you, I would highly, highly recommend this, okay? This little part is not perfect, so there we go. Just readjust it a little bit. You can lift it while it's hot and then make any adjustments right away. It's in place. That Steam-A-Seam 2, it has come in to save the day, and it's really, really nice. You can feel free to clip this while we get ready to add the other side, but it's usually easier once you have this side already done. Then you can take your lining piece and you can just put it in place to match up with the exterior, and it should just line up perfectly. That's kind of know how you're doing it correctly. And then you're gonna go in with some clips, making sure all the little pieces of the zipper get tucked in, because you see how that one end wants to like poke out a little bit. So just take your time, Once it's happy in place, clip it all the way around to hold in place, and it should align up with the rest of it. Okay, so we have that nice and clipped in place, and you're gonna wanna make sure you start sewing about 1/2 inch before and after the zipper. Another little tip I wanted to mention, how we use that Steam-A-Seam 2 tape to attach the zipper to the exterior. You could easily go in and add that Steam-A-Seam tape to the back side of the zipper too, and adhere it onto the lining, so then that way it's like super, super good in place, but it's just up to you. It's a great tape. You can use it on both sides if you wanted to. So about 1/2 inch before the zipper starts, somewhere right around here, you can eyeball it. And then the end of the zipper, the tab is right here, so I'm just gonna make myself a little marking to let myself know to stop sewing about there. Stitch length is gonna come down to a 2, just for piecing purposes here. And we're working with a true 1/4 inch. And when you start, make sure you do a back tack stitch to ensure that stitching, and make sure you really take your time here as you're going around that curve, because the more you go with the natural shape of the project, the better results you're gonna have. All right, now we're approaching the tab end, and I'm just gonna go to the red marker, and once I reach that, I'm gonna do a little back tack stitch to secure that and cut. All right, now with some scissors, you can go in here and just clip a little bit right on that curve to help contour the shape better. You can clip about 1/8 inch every inch or so, just to help release some of that tension that's in the fabric, so it helps curve a little bit better. And now you're gonna turn it out to see what we got going on here. And it's looking really good so far. So I'm gonna meet you guys at the ironing station, because we're gonna give this a little press. Look how beautiful that looks. All right, so you're just gonna turn it out, and you're just gonna like start to form that nice curved shape, just making sure everything is nice and cohesive. And then you can go in with your iron and just kind of press it to get things rocking and rolling. Keep its nice little pretty shape. It should look really good so far, you guys. It's really coming to life. We just have the other side, and then we're just about done. Once you have that nice and pressed, we're gonna go ahead and top stitch this part at 1/8 inch. So remember how we started a 1/2 and a 1/2 over here? You're gonna start there, do your little stitch, and stop again where you ended on this side. All right, so for my top stitching, I love to use a left compensating foot. This foot has a guide on the left side, little small groove here to help the fabric sit right along the edge, and it's gonna help me get that consistent 1/8 inch all the way through. So I'm just gonna start by making sure my stitch length is a 3.5, something nice and decorative here. And we're going to start, do a little back tack stitch to just secure some enforcement there. And then you see how the foot onto the left, that little guide is just sitting perfectly right up against that zipper. I don't even have to open the zipper. The zipper can stay exactly where it is, and it's just getting right close to that edge, and it's catching the backside as well. Can't rave enough about this foot, honestly, you guys. This is like my favorite thing ever. And then just gonna stop to right about that 1/2 inch point where I started. Just end it with a top or a little back tack stitch or a lock stitch, depending on the machine you're working with. So look at that. How perfect is that? Now let's check the back side. Perfection. Now to really repeat the same series of steps for this other side, we're gonna go ahead and grab that Steam-A-Seam tape. I also did extend this line just so that way it wasn't a problem. Go ahead and have your last little lining piece ready to the side, as well as your exterior, your last pieces to this project. Go ahead and grab that Steam-A-Seam 2 tape, line it up as close as you can. Once it's in its happy place, go ahead and grab your iron and just press this down to start making the tape translucent, and peel it off right away. Voila. And then make sure your little 1/2 inch mark is still there on the zipper. Grab your last little exterior bunny piece. We're gonna fold that in half to find the center crease on this one, right at the bottom. Finger press, go in, make a little line there, just so you can see it depending on what you're using. And then we're just gonna grab that zipper and do the same thing that we just did. I like to flip it upside down at this point and make sure those 1/2 inch markers match up. So I'm gonna open it, adjust it accordingly. You can see there, you see right here. So just do it like that. And then start contouring it. Contouring the zipper, and as you're contouring it, go ahead and start to glue it down to the exterior. All right, now the other side. And just take your time here because this part's really, really important. And this stuff is incredible for kind of making a pin-free process to zippers. So as you can see there, I got a little off. So while it's still warm, you'll feel free to take it off and then remove it to get it really in the perfect spot. So I'm just gonna take the lining piece, put it right side down. So you should really see all the wrong sides to your project. And make sure that it matches up with the rest of the project. And then just pin it in place, clip it in place, pin it, whatever works for you, like that, okay? And it should be nice and cohesive with the rest of the pieces so you can kind of lift it to see, but everything should just kind of lay nicely. While we're here, let's go ahead and create those little markers. So there's where the zipper starts, right here. So I'm just gonna make myself a rough little line right there. The zipper starts right here. So I'm gonna start here and finish here, do a little back tack, 1/4 of an inch all the way along this curve. All right, drop that stitch length back to 2. I did take that left compensating foot off, by the way, and put back the hinged 1/4 inch foot. And if you liked the way that left compensating foot worked, remember that's on Juki Junkies as well, okay? Before you start here, you can always feel free to open up this project just to kind of feel where the zipper is. If it's like in the way, I can definitely tell it's gonna be in the way right as I start. So I'm just gonna close it a little bit, just so it's out the way, and then we'll be able to start with no problem. So starting at that little line that you made for yourself, that 1/2 inch marker, do a little back tack stitch, and then just go ahead and start to bring in all those layers. I can feel that I'm approaching that zipper again, so I am just gonna move it back to where it was. I lift the foot up, and then I'm approaching that red line. That's my indicator to stop, do a little back tack stitch, and cut, okay? And at this point, again, we're gonna do that little clip for the curves. I'll trim this little extra zipper hair off. Not that it's seen anyways, but just to get it out the way. And then we're just gonna clip every like 1/2 inch or so, inch, just a little 1/8 of an inch just to release some of that tension in both the zipper and the fabrics. Nothing too crazy. And we're gonna turn this out and press it and then do the top stitching just like we did to the other layer. Go ahead and start to turn this out. And should start looking very similar to the other side. Kind of curve that with the shape of the bunny. And then once you kind of start getting happy with it, feel free to grab your iron and slowly start to give that a good little press there, so it keeps that nice shape, and you can press out that shape and define the shape to your liking before you top stitch. Really important that you do this now versus regret it later. Make sure to do it on the back side too, because it's gotta be nice and cohesive on the front and the back. That left compensating foot is back on. We see how it has a little spring right there and the groove right here. That'll help the zipper stay nice and tight to it. Go ahead and grab our project. Make sure that stitch length is nice and decorative once again. So whatever you used for the other side, use it on this side. Pop that right to where you kind of started, that 1/2 inch past that zipper. You're gonna start there for the top stitching, okay? So keep it nice and consistent. Do your little back tack stitch just to secure everything. And then just go right along that edge, 1/8 of an inch all the way. I love using this for zippers, for machine binding. This is just such a fabulous tool. So then we're just going to stitch off to right about kind of where we started, that 1/2 inch, top stitch, back stitch right there. And then voila, beautiful on the front and the back. Okay, so look at how gorgeous everything is looking so far. The zipper is fully functional. You're kind of getting a feel for what the pouch is gonna look like. So now it's time to just get ready to finish it up. We're gonna make sure that zipper is open. Really important that you keep that in mind, the zipper is open, because if it's closed, this last part A is gonna be really difficult to put all the layers together. But B, when you gotta birth it, it's gonna be closed. So then you're in a little bit of a predicament. And we're gonna start to match up the layers. So you're gonna match your half bunny linings together. And then you're gonna start to match your exterior bunnies together. And you'll notice that the zipper is gonna start to kind of do this like weird little like puckering thing. Let me see if I can get it to focus. This like weird little pucker thing. Make sure that that is poking out towards the bunny and the outside of the bunny, not the inside of the bunny, because that's where the zipper is gonna lay. It's just gonna help everything lay nicely together. So start with the smaller pieces. I find that that's a little bit easier. And you can feel free to use pins here. You can feel free to use clips. I'm just gonna use a couple pins just for like the outside, like the bigger pieces. And then for the outside, I'm not really gonna do anything. And this part you're gonna leave open. So you're gonna leave yourself a little indicator. Since we don't wanna leave it right on the edges, we're gonna go in about a half inch, just so we have something to work with here, and then leave this part open. So now, matching up those seams on the side, we're gonna make sure that the seams sit together right on top of one another. And I usually like to pop a pin here because I find that this part is really important, obviously, to the shape and the cohesiveness of the pouch when it opens. So just pop a little pin there, okay? Matching those seams right on top of one another, and then go ahead and repeat this onto the other side. So you should have something like this so far. And I think I'm gonna just use a couple clips here just to make sure that I'm staying with the nice little curve of the bunny, like that, on all sides. Keeping this open. And then this side, you're just gonna match up everything together so it lays perfectly. All those little curves should be perfectly on top of one another. And they'll only match up as good as you cut it. So there's that. Flip it over. Might make sure the pole is not in the way. Making sure everything is in position. You can never have too many clips, right? So you have something like this, okay? So this is what we're gonna take over to the sewing machine, and we're gonna start at that red line, sew all the way around, going with the contour of the bunny. And this, definitely be very patient here because there's a lot of stopping and adjusting. 1/4 inch, we're gonna go all the way around again till we get here to do a back tack stitch, and then we're gonna birth it through here. All right, guys, so now we're just gonna do that final stitch all the way around the little bunny. So putting all the layers together. I would make sure your stitch length is back at that too, so it's nice and secure. And then let's go ahead and start at those little indicators that we have for ourselves. The really most important thing here is to make sure that you're going with the shape of the bunny. So when you first do this initial little stitch, do a back tack stitch, and then you're gonna notice that it starts to curve. So you're gonna make sure you stop and pivot in order to go with the shape of the bunny, especially on that corner there, because that is a defining shape to the rabbit, okay? So to the little bunny, all right? So we're just gonna go really slow and steady, okay? Be a tortoise, not a hare here. And everyone knows that I love to stitch fast, I love to talk fast, but you definitely gotta slow it down here and make sure you're really following the shape of the bunny, okay? So when you start approaching that seam, you're gonna sew to the seam, okay? And then I can feel the little pull here, so just make sure it's out the way so that way you can actually stitch it. And then it does start to go back down into that curve, so make sure you're going with the shape. So it kind of is like a little bow shape, so you're gonna sew down into that seam and then make sure you go back out so it goes with the shape of the bunny, okay? So about 1/4 inch out. And then just keep going and until you get all the way around to the next red indicator that tells you to stop. All right, so now I'm approaching that little red line again, and it's really important that I make sure that I start to pivot here. And I'll show you a little up close so you see exactly what I'm talking about. So you can see how I sewed to the curve and then I stopped and pivoted to go straight and kind of do a back tack stitch there. I did the same here, made sure that I really sewed with the shape of the bunny as much as possible. One last step that I would like to let you guys know about just before we turn it out. Since this bunny is very, very curvy, we're gonna kind of apply the same logic that we did to when we added the zippers about clipping every 1/2 inch or so on these curves. Also, like in these little parts where it goes like right at an angle, clip about halfway. This is gonna help release that tension and make this a little bit more defined. So go ahead and just go around and clip at those curves to help with the shape. And just be careful that you're not going all the way to the stitches. You're kind of doing halfway. You're meeting halfway in there. All right, so now we can turn it right side out. And you're probably gonna wanna grab like a stiletto so that you can perk these ears out better. This is always the hardest part and the scariest part because it feels like I'm breaking the project doing this. So just requires a little bit of patience. As you start taking shape to your rabbit, feel free to, use like a stiletto or something to really start curving out the components of the rabbit, especially their little cheeks and the sides of their bodies. So once you have it, you can use your iron to start pressing those little areas as you go, because obviously the more defined the shape, the easier it will be to identify the shape of your pouch. And this is why I made the pattern so that way the lining didn't go in the ears, because you guys could probably imagine how much more difficult that would have been. My first sample that I made was like that, and then Gigi was like, why didn't you make it so it doesn't go in the ears? And I was like, brilliant, brilliant. Once you've pressed out the exterior of the bunny, you're gonna kind of have to do the same thing to the lining, and this one doesn't have to be as perfect because obviously it's not the part that's seen. So just kind of fluff out those edges, but most importantly, the top we're gonna tuck in at about 1/4 inch. So that way it's nice and flat. You see how much of a difference that curve just made? You see how it kind of starts to point out on one side? So it's definitely important that you go in there and try to smooth out those curves as much as possible. All right, so that little birthing area that you left open, make sure it's nice and flush and it's nice and flat. Since this is tucked in at 1/4 inch, we're gonna make sure we top stitch this at 1/8 inch. Your stitch length should still be like a 2 because this needs to be nice and secure, so obviously it's concealed on the inside. We're just gonna do a little back tack stitch right as we start, and then just doing 1/8 inch right along that edge. And then at the end, you're gonna do a little back tack stitch as well. So it should look something like this, and make sure that it catches on both sides, trim those little extra hairs, and tuck it into the main body of the pouch. Ta-da! And it's done. And honestly, this turned out so cute. I cannot wait to offer these kits for you guys. They are adorable. So the pattern is on JukiJunkies.com. The kits are on JukiJunkies.com. Check the description down below. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed the Butler method and that you can apply this in some zipper pouches that you have at home. Feel free to ask any questions down in the comments below. I'm going to try my best to answer as many as possible. I'm thinking of even doing like a live Q&A, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, check out all the information in the description down below. And remember, feel free to pizzazz this up as much as you want. Add a little fluffy here. Me and Kristen were talking about how cute this would be like as a crossbody for like a little girl. That would be so cute. Get creative. This is an awesome way to, let your mind wander into some fun possibilities. So when you make your little bunny, feel free to post it on social media, tag us on Instagram and Facebook at Gigi's Fabric Shop, at Juki Junkies, and use the hashtag #MakeItMonday so then that way I can see all of your guys' projects come to life. And feel free to share this video with somebody that would enjoy this pattern. Have a great one. Give it a like. Make sure you guys subscribe down below, as we'll have more Make It Mondays real soon.